I'm painfully aware there's only 2 talks standing in between me and the free drinks here. But I'm gonna have to ask you to give me a show of hands. Who here gets enough exercise? Maybe 5 hands. That's very good. So I want you to ask yourself a question, does my company get enough exercise? And because we're talking about cyber, of course I'm talking about cyber exercises here. So naturally everybody asks, what is a cyber exercise? So I'll tell you what I think it is. It can be a lot of things, but this is my take on it. I think it's a simulated serious cyber incident. And I'd like you to focus on the 3rd bulletin point right there. It's a free crisis, which means that your company will have crises during their life cycle. But with an exercise, you get to decide when to have one and be pretty sure that it won't cost you your whole budget or the life of your company. You can take the same challenges that would face you in an actual cyber crisis and see how you would do. And that's probably why a lot of companies aren't doing it. It's hard, it shows weak spots in your actions, and it really puts the theory of how you're going to react into practice. Sometimes that's painful, but learning is painful, and this is a learning tool. There are some pretty clear benefits from having a cyber exercise. Enhanced crisis management skills. Well, we've heard a lot of sentences like that today, and processes and everything, but what it actually teaches you is about yourself and your company and how all the things that you think are in place, like your processes and your guidebooks and your guidelines and management and leadership, how they actually react when they're put to the actual ultimate test of having a very far-reaching cyber crisis in your company. There's a good idea that cyber is actually quite more comprehensive than just something that happens in the server room. We know that we can't solve all the cyber issues in the server room because we have people who are using those computer systems. And those people do things. Sometimes they're smart things, sometimes they're not. But they do a lot of things, and you need to incorporate the people into your security scheme. And in an exercise, you get to focus on the people and maybe forget a bit about the software and the hardware that you're relying on to keep your security apparatus working, or at least looking like it's working. And communications is always, I've been involved in about 30 exercises now, more or less, and there's always 2 key takes. We need to enhance leadership, and communications failed. So training with your communications in a cyber crisis is it's a very useful thing. And also it can be a lot of fun. In an optimal state, it's really fun because learning is fun. It's hard, but it's fun. Well, yeah, there's the question, of course, how do I exercise? What are my options? Well, basically, it's like a physical exercise. Anything you do is useful to a certain point. You have to decide why you are exercising, what are your goals, what are you doing, and then decide on the correct way to run your own exercise, or maybe buy one from somebody else. You can use tabletop exercise. All you need is a conference room and the key people there. And you can pose some really hard questions to them. Let's say our user database leaks to the darknet, and then criminals are selling it for Bitcoin. How do we react? That's an exercise right there. And then you spend 4 hours answering that question and really trying to dive deep into it. What would happen? What are the implications of us losing this stuff? Like really, actually. And then you can go to a scenario exercise where the exercise keeps evolving through the game. You might need 2 conference rooms, one for the game runners and one for the people who are playing. And then you can get an actual, kind of a real live action role-playing stuff going there, where events can unfold during the exercise. Or you can go live fire. You can take some dummy malware, put it into your network, make it generate traffic, and tell the IT geeks that your job is now, this is an exercise, your job is to hunt down that malware, and I want a report of what's going on in our networks in 3 hours, go. And that can also be very useful because then they can go inside the networks and see if they can find something that hasn't probably been there before or that they haven't been hunting before. It's all up to design. So when you are designing an exercise, and I'm sure everybody today will get the idea that you should ask yourself 3 basic questions before you start. And the first one is, of course, why? Why are we exercising? Because that is the key question, and that needs to be the leading star that guides you through the whole process. Because if you don't have an answer to why, then you don't know what you're doing. And just because it says so that we should exercise, or that bald guy at the cybersecurity executive told us to, that's not a good why. You need an actual question. And could even be a question that you really don't want to know the answer to, but you might find out something very useful if you ask it. So set your aim. And that question why will answer partly the next question, which is who is exercising? Do we need to exercise our top management? Are they disconnected with the day-to-day problems that the people are having who are trying to come up with solutions? Are they focusing resources correctly? Do they have actual leadership in a situation when there is a cyber crisis that is threatening the livelihood of the company or the whole existence of the company even? And when you know why and who, then you get to choose how. And you can use all kinds of tools for this. You can buy this from a company or you can design it yourself. Just a simple couple of emails can be an exercise, even a beneficial exercise. You can start small. It's not a problem. But choose the most suitable exercise type. There is no one-size-fits-all solution here. It all depends on what are you going to do and why are you doing it. So if you decide to do it yourself, you need to assign people to some roles. You need to find the people who are planning the exercise. This is the planning group. And the problem is that usually we want to put our best people there, and hopefully the best people are the ones who are solving the actual issues when the issues arise in real life. But you can't do that. You need planners who are not aware, are not actually playing in the game. So you need to take your best people and designate them as players, and then take the best planning people and have them plan the exercise for the players, because these 2 groups can't communicate too much beforehand. The exercise won't work if the players know what the planners know. You can do even kind of an M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end, and if the players already know what's going to happen, or at least one of them knows, he might betray the secret at the end. You can really play around with this stuff. And then you need the people with super special skills, the observers, because they really need to be able to observe, just watch what's happening. Because when you have a designated observer in your exercise who has no other role than to watch other people, they are going to see things that other people aren't going to see, and they might give you really, really good insight. But I've seen some observers who do not fit this criteria. They might be silent and not say anything, but just the look on their face like, oh, that's how you're going, okay, well, I would have done it differently, but who am I to judge? That's not a good way. That's not a good person to be an observer. But designate some observers to your exercise. And actually designing and running the exercise is just the beginning of the whole operation. And that's where you do most of the work. But you need to analyze your results. And the point is, you can't really win an exercise. If it's designed so that everything goes smoothly and swimmingly and everything's perfect, that's not a very good exercise, because what's the point of going to the gym and lifting up just the bar? Okay, sure, you can do it 100 times, but did you benefit from that? I ran 15 meters today. What a great jog. No. If it's too hard, if you get an experience of abject total failure, that's not good either, of course. So it's a really delicate balance to build an exercise that has enough challenge so it remains interesting, has enough solutions so it remains engaging, and kind of surfs on the brink of chaos and order in a way, if you want to use that kind of language for that. But when it's a positive experience, a learning experience, people are inclined to come again when you ask them to exercise another time. Because I think the optimal way is that you do this routinely, like every year, every 6 months, smaller exercises every once in a while for individual groups, maybe one big exercise for the whole company, at least once a year. It will build trust in exercising as a tool, because that's all it is. It's not theater, it's a tool. And a tool has a purpose, and the purpose is to build your readiness. So I made a very scientific graph about this, how analyzing the results of the exercise might work. So here we see on white the planning work, the work required to plan the exercise, which is a lot of work, I have to tell you. I've done it a couple of times. You have to write a lot of stuff, you have to think about a lot of stuff and send tons of email. And then you have the actual exercise, and that's where the players start working. And they come over, they're engaged for the duration of the exercise. It can be anything from 4 hours to a week, probably closer to 4 hours usually. But we had week-long exercises too. And they do their work, and maybe they learn something, and then the exercise is over, they drop the gloves, they go back to the office, and they keep doing things exactly the way they've been doing them all the time. And the stuff that they learn from the exercise, it's kind of lost in time. But if you put resources on a thoughtful analysis of the results of the exercise, you will be able to isolate the learning points from the exercise. And not just stop when the exercise stops, but revisit the learnings. And then you collect data from the observers who saw all the dumb things people did and nobody noticed. And maybe they have an insight on next time, maybe you do this, your process is failing there, you didn't take notes, you didn't designate a secretary, and by the way, nobody was leading. There was no leadership. That's something that an observer might say. I wouldn't say that to my boss if he was in the exercise himself, that you didn't take leadership in the situation where it would call for that. And because of that, it resembled more of a pack of monkeys instead of a well-organized group trying to solve a problem. So do this work and focus on this. And even if you buy an exercise from a company like F-Secure or Nixu or Deloitte or KPMG, I'm sure all of these people would be happy to sell you one. They will provide you with their own analysis. But that's only a tool for you, and it's only useful if you read it and really think about it. And when it makes you feel bad that you didn't do well, you learn from that. And then you develop your process or your guidebook or whatever. And if you're running your own exercise, there is what's called an optimal exercise experience. I kind of like this Venn diagram kind of thought here, because there could be on the left side, there is the abject boredom of an exercise going too well. Everybody's falling asleep, it's business as usual. And then on the extreme right, there's the total chaos. The game runners are being too enthusiastic. They're just throwing problems on your way, one problem after the other. And once you get the hang of it, you start even understanding what the first problem is, the next one's flying through the window. And that's not a very good experience. You won't learn there. So you can be either in boredom mode or survival mode. Survival mode, that's not a learning mode, that's just survival mode. But when you're straddling there on that quite a small sliver between total chaos and total boredom, that's the zone where the learning can come and where you get insights and you get ideas and you realize that we've had all this backwards, whatever that might be, but at least you're walking through what you would do. So there's a reason why this is an ancient symbol. There's a little bit of chaos in order and a little bit of order in chaos, and somewhere in between there's the optimal mode of being. So if you don't want to run your own exercise, that's fine. I know it can be pretty intimidating trying to find somebody who will take the task and who will find all the resources to build an exercise. And do you even have a guy to spare? Are you going to hire somebody who doesn't know your company just to do that? Well, you can buy it from somebody outside your own company. And they have pretty good models here. We worked with a bunch of companies and they all have different approaches. And some of them are specialized in tabletop exercises. They can design one for you right now. Or they have their own training simulators, which they can use also, which makes a scenario exercise way easier to run. They'll come with you with a ready-made product basically, and then you supply most of the design work. So if you have an existing cybersecurity partner, which probably a lot of you do, I'm sure they'd be happy to help you. And if you don't, well, ask around. Just do a Google search. You'll find somebody who will be happy to sell you this. And once you've done that once, you can take ownership of the process and do the next one yourself. And maybe aim a little higher next time and do something bigger. But the thing is, just if you don't get off your ass and into the gym even once, you're never going to get any benefits. So that's basically it. I just kind of flew through it, got 4 minutes to spare. Hope that's okay. The next session is the last one, so thank you very much.